waiting for. Hi, everyone. Wow, I am thrilled. Look at the turnout on this hot day. Is it just the air conditioning? This is great. So we, how many of us, are there 6 members of CPIC? 2 of the committee members couldn't come today. But we are here to hear your concerns and questions and probably not answer them all. Thank you. And if you don't have enough questions to fill the time, we can do a little dog and pony show. We can do a little, sort of presentation on how we've gotten to this point and where we are in terms of, where we are is the draft code has come together, 2 parts, the town center using form-based code and everything beyond, which is primarily update and cleanup. The update and cleanup moved through the process with staff and planning board. And the town center, which is definitely not just the town center, but it's the growth area, which is using form-based code, that moved through the process with the comp plan implementation committee, staff and consultants. So that there was 2 sort of moving parts separate, and now they have gotten married. They're on the town website, and the parts of the town center code that the person who can answer this is sitting in the front row, Dan Catlin. When you printed off the red line piece, Dan, my guess is that section is not the whole code. It's the town center. It's the chapters that deal with the town center growth area form-based code. Is that correct?
Article 1 through 15, and the date is, draft date is March 11th.
Right, but in that table of contents.
Yeah.
Yep, the things that are highlighted,
Okay.
I have a feeling that that's just the town center stuff, because that's the portion where we had office hours. We had some very specific sessions with feedback, some of which you were part of. And the red line portion is up there so that people, who said, look, I made X, Y, and Z suggestions. Did they listen to me? They can find them, right? So the red line is there. But there's also, in another document on the town website, is the whole new code. And there's no red line there. It's a draft. And this is sort of the early part of the process where we're sharing it with you. And we hope that you will engage with it. There's going to be an update piece in the crier next month. So a couple of weeks in your mailbox, you'll have the crier. There'll be photographs of the display in the lobby there with a photograph of all of us. And then there'll be a little piece describing where we are in the process. On the page, the full page that Topsham takes out, the ad, there will be a box or some layout that Pamela Duke will do with some dates that we're proposing to have coffee with ReCode, so that if any individual who wants to stop by on a Tuesday or a Thursday, slightly different hours, because we don't know when is best for everybody. So if you look at that schedule, it will all be sort of in the July issue of the crier. On that one, the Topsham ad, you can see a whole bunch of dates and times. Pick a time that's good for you and come in, and 1 or 2 of us will be here to hear your concerns, hear your feedback, make sure they're written down, and we'll engage with that with a consultant. So I want to throw this open to you. And I first want to ask you 2 different questions. One question is, do you know something about ReCode? And the second question is, do you have a question today about Project ReCode? So it's not a test, you don't have to answer me, but I'm hoping that over the course of, a year ago in May, the Crier carried a long article with a front page photo of a map of the town center growth area. That map has since changed, and I can share that with you. Maybe right now. This is a good time to do that. So I don't have to share screen, right? I just have to.
You can if you want people to see it. But now we both have both screens working, so you can see it from that.
So let's see where I am. So that's the form-based code.
And it is referenced.
Okay, so I don't see, Mark, a place to share screen. Am I in the meeting as a,
Oh, I gotta let you in, that's right. You're in the audience, so.
I don't have the right vocabulary, but he knows what I'm saying. There we go, join as a panelist, okay? Okay, share. There we go. Okay, so here, I'll start down in the map where most of you are familiar, right? Coming over the bridge, we find, see at the bottom of the map is the lower village, and then there's middle village, and then sort of a dark purpley area, upper village. And the map that was on the front page of the Crier 13 months ago was different in two ways. I think we had not broken out two different zones in the Topsham Fair Mall area. So now the dark blue is called the transitional mixed zone because it's between the primarily commercial, which is commercial mixed, and residential, so it's a transitional mixed zone. And then if you look at the top of the map, that medium blue is the Crooker area, which the zone there is the master plan zone. And there's a little section that's darker blue, just like the transitional zone, which we had been calling Topsham Fair Mall 2, because it's quite different, that area along Park Drive, than the rest of Topsham Fair Mall. And this area as well is kind of a transitional zone. So it made sense in discussion with staff and the consultants to make that. So rather than have a geographically specific zone, it has to do with use and its character and how it's going to fit into the rest of the town and the area, this growth area. So that's the map that you see now, that's the way the draft is. But a year ago, when folks, if they were interested, took the time to read that long article in the Crier, hopefully interest piqued by a photograph on the front page, there has been information out there. The town website has kept information very up to date. Our meetings are always open. The minutes are on the, that would put you to sleep, but we have done our part, I think, as we have done the work, to share what's going on. And now, starting with a week or so ago with the special town meeting, we distributed flyers. There's information there about where people can get more information. Because sometimes, for me, I go to the town website and it's like, where am I supposed to look? And this will guide you exactly where you're supposed to look. And there's a 13-minute video, which is a great introduction to this project. It's actually a PowerPoint, and as it scrolls through, there's narration by Leslie Oberholzer, who was the consultant handling the form-based code zoning area. And so that's a great place to start. If you're like me, you probably need to listen to that 2 or 3 times. Sort of take in, there's a lot of information there. But the whole point of that little video is to get you ready to take the next step, which might be, it might be back to the comprehensive plan. I don't know how many folks have a hard copy of it, but it's on the website. Sometimes it's helpful to go backwards before we go forwards. And then there's the full draft code, you know, which there is a red line version for people who are looking for that of the town center, the changes that have been made. And then there's the cleanup update, which is beyond that. So, yeah, I see.
Could I make a general comment and one question?
Absolutely, but would you come to the mic because, and it will be recorded properly.
Well, hello committee. But the general comment I want to make, since you might want to hear a general comment first, is just, I served on the planning board here for 9 years in ancient history. And most town ordinances at the time, and even worse before that, were kind of difficult to read, incomprehensible, and it's very hard, unless you were used to them, to go from one part in the ordinance to another, to know all the rules that apply to your project. And my impression is, in going through the whole ReCode, the draft, and I started with the village center districts, because I know that's what you're concentrating on, is I had very positive, exciting reaction to. Part of it is just a visual present. The organization visually and graphically is so superior to what we had in the past that it's shocking. And I didn't know it was possible.
We did not plan this question. We did not. I promise you.
That doesn't mean some details won't work out in the future. You know, when you get into actual review, sometimes there may be bumps in the road. That doesn't mean that this hasn't been a tremendously, I think, good and useful effort for the town. I mean, I love it, you know, so far. Now, do you have one more question? It happens to be with Article 12. I know you guys are dealing with that tonight, but it was just Article 12. It was early in the article dealing with initiating an amendment to the zoning map. And it listed the 4 or 5 ways that process can be initiated. One was, you know, obviously the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board. One was the town planner, the code enforcement officer. But what I didn't understand in looking at the whole page was, is the question, regardless of where it's initiated, does the next step always involve a review by the planning board to discuss that idea, research it, and to make a finding, and hold up, in addition to holding a public hearing? Is there any way in which a proposed revision to the zoning map can occur without planning board involvement? That would be my question. I wasn't sure.
Right. And thank you so much for that, for both parts of it. I'm not going to answer that today.
Maybe Mark doesn't know either. I don't know.
My
I
guess,
can answer based on the current code. So because we went through this with the Crooker process, and currently it needs to go to the planning board, no matter how it's initiated. My understanding is there was not an intent to change that, but we'll check that. So.
Yeah, okay. So there was no, that's what I was wondering. Maybe there was no intent to change it, but See, that's one of those invisible things that sometimes in an ordinance, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary,
Yeah.
do you think it's lack of clarity? Lack of clarity?
Well, you go, you part with who can initiate the planning board. The zoning amendment idea is on the left column, and then it moves up to a discussion in red that's been revised, how the planning board holds public hearings. And so when you go from the left column of the page, you go to the top of the right side of the page. Well, it doesn't specifically say that all of these ways of initiating a zoning, an amendment to the zoning map has to go to the planning board. Maybe it never did.
I think it does at 12.20.6
Well, then, if that's true, then Maryland.
on all zoning map ordinances.
And the more I think about it too, Gary, I think it's state law. I remember reading this, when we were researching the issue with the Crooker. State law says if you're changing a zoning code, it has to go to the planning board too, a zoning district boundary. So that's another step.
Thanks to you guys, I have greater confidence that probably is going to be the process.
Right, I think that is gonna be the process, because when you're talking about a zoning that should change the boundaries, change the map, that would go through the planning board. There's been no discussion about changing that
Okay.
process.
Thank you.
Yeah,
12.20.6.
say it one more time, Marilyn.
12.20.6
Great,
is what
thank
I
you.
got.
Great,
Well, that's it for me for right now. So
right. Oh, and you brought up another thing, all of it is, there is gonna be a way on the website to ask questions exactly like this. I mean, there may be times when a question comes up and you don't wanna necessarily spend a couple hours at a community forum, but you might wanna say, here's my question, it comes in this, what's important to us is that you identify that section of the code, article blank, and what is your question or comment? And that's another way that all of those, this is exactly what happened in the update process that produced this comp plan. And the update committee went through every question and comment. And some of them, were acted on in different ways, but we're gonna take those questions and comments in the same way. So if you don't come up with everything you wanna know today, don't worry.
just keep asking.
There will be a form, there'll be paper forms, and there will be an online form as well.
And our intent is also to publish all the responses on the website, so everyone will get the benefit of the question and the answer.
That, I know that some other people were asking me about that, and I didn't know the answer, so that would be great, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else on the committee wanna? Okay, thank you, Gary, for starting us off.
Oh, okay, great.
Any other questions and comments? Even as you look at the map, are there any questions or comments that come up?
Is the map posted,
It's on the town website, I believe.
this new version?
It should be.
It would be in the updated code.
Yeah, it should be in the updated code.
We can put it separately too.
Yeah,
It is separate. It's there under key documents.
thank you. We've tried to put everything up there as it's happened, so, yeah, as questions come up in the middle of the night.
This is time. Presentation. Some sort.
Could be. Yeah, would it be helpful to actually hear a little bit more from us about how we got here? Okay. Let's see. So, three of us have speaking parts. What we're gonna do for you is basically a redo of a workshop that we gave to the select board on May 2nd. And that felt like a very successful engagement. There were two brand new members, I mean, not brand new at that month, but who had not heard a lot about ReCode. The other three reasonably familiar, but two folks, so we went through this whole process mostly for their benefit. And, you know, and some, I think there were about 15 people, both in the room and online, who were present and asked some questions. So that is also recorded. So, and I think all the questions, everything's recorded. So, yeah, so I'm gonna start off and then I'm gonna turn it over to Pete. And Margaret will bring up the rear, and anybody else who has something to chime in and say is well invited to do that. I'm gonna get rid of the map. Well, in a minute. Very fond of the map. All right, so just for folks who might need that little reminder, you know, the 2019 comp plan, it took roughly 3 years to complete that comprehensive plan, and approved at the May special town meeting. I was there, I did not see a single vote against it. There might have been one, you never know, but it felt pretty unanimous to me, and that was a very late meeting. So there was a lot of positive support behind that, and that, you know, that comp plan had probably more citizen involvement in shaping it than any comprehensive plan this town has ever done. And what it came out with was 9 big ideas. Streets for people, local and regional mobility, access to nature and open spaces, fostering social connection, supporting the knowledge economy, being deliberate about growth, housing diversity, more open governance, and a more sustainable future. So what, you know, the comprehensive plan update committee was formed in 2020. And we spent a little time getting to know each other, looking at the strategy matrix in the back of this comprehensive plan, which under every one of those 9 big ideas, there are a number of strategies about how to achieve that goal. So we worked with that for a little while, and we came up with, you know, so many things in that comp plan point to, we've got to look at the land use code. We've got to take a look at this and see what needs to be changed. So it took a little time to issue the RFP, interview consultants, find the right ones. We have the perfect consultants. And then we started working with them. Part of what we looked at was, you know, if you looked at the comprehensive plan, there are example catalyst sites in that comprehensive plan. The question came up, do we pick one catalyst site? You know, do we pick the Topsham Fair Mall? Do we pick the Crooker site? You know, what do we look at here? And we wanted, and we learned, working with staff, that it had been a long time, about 40 years, since Topsham's land use code had a comprehensive review. And I remembered some things, you know, that I had heard along the way in terms of listening to planning board public hearings. And I was aware of some of the things that were struggle points. And we thought we have an opportunity here to really do something larger. Why pick a little thing? And so we looked at ReCode as a way to address basically 7 out of the 9 big ideas. The only ones not addressed by ReCode at all, really, are local and regional mobility and open governance. Everything else is either addressed in a big way or obliquely, indirectly. So to be able to address, not completely fulfilling, but to address 7 of the 9 big ideas felt like a really important thing to do. So, sorry. So I think what I need to do is turn it over to Pete, if that's all right.
That's fine. Do you have the,
I'm gonna find it. Yeah, in fact, I've come up with, why is that one? Wait. It's on my screen and it's not here. So why is that?
You have to share it.
I have to share it. Now you're looking at tech challenge Susan here. Oh, it is shared. My screen is shared. Okay, but what I want to do is share something else.
Just stop sharing first.
Should I stop and then do it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so share. Yeah, there we go. Ha, practice. No, it's the M1. Listen to the M1. All right, and now there we go. So that's the start. Is that okay for you to, Pete, to just sort of start from there?
Yes. Do you have the, there's an abbreviated outline, I don't know,
There
do you have
is,
that?
I do,
Might be helpful.
okay. Not that we expect you to read anything, don't worry.
I
Just,
don't know, can you see that at all? No, okay.
it's for you,
Yeah, okay.
but you have your printed version.
Yes, I have it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm old fashioned, I have it printed out here. I'm gonna be talking about form-based code and form-based code versus traditional code, or what's called Euclidean code. So a little bit of background and some practical applications related to it. And of course, the reason I'm going to be talking about form-based code mostly is that our proposed town center growth area uses both form-based code and traditional Euclidean code, but the preponderance being form-based code. So hence the emphasis on that. So let's start out. What is form-based code? And it's also known as character-based code, character being referring to the character of a town or a character of a city or a community. And why did we choose it? Why did we choose form-based code as a significant part of ReCode? How is it different from traditional code? Let's first look at the traditional code, which is also referred to as Euclidean code. So since the 1926 landmark Supreme Court case, Village of Euclid, Ohio versus Amber Realty Company, U.S. municipalities have had the right to zone by dividing land uses by type, meaning residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, etc. So this is the primary focus of the traditional code or Euclidean code. The purpose being was to separate industrial from residential uses to protect residents against pollution risks like smoke producing and water polluting industries. And Euclidean code, most importantly, was planned for the automobile. And Euclidean code goes back almost 100 years. So it was planned for the automobile first without considering how the buildings were oriented to the street and how pedestrians would use them. And unfortunately, this encouraged excessive land consumption unattractive urban and suburban sprawl, and negative environmental and social effects. Let's talk about form-based code. Form-based code emerged at the end of the 20th century, in the 80s, as an alternative to Euclidean code. And instead of focusing on land use, form-based code focuses on the physical form and characteristics of buildings and their orientation to the street. And other form-based code considerations include building size, design features, building materials. There's one of the posters in the lobby has a poster about building materials. And the strategic building placement to ensure they're compatible with the layout of existing building patterns and pedestrian use, including surrounding streets, blocks, sidewalks, parking areas, trees, landscaping, and green open spaces for public use. The goal of form-based code is to improve the physical character of a community by integrating new development with the existing environment to enhance local architecture, pedestrian use, social interaction, environmental elements, and overall beautification that improves the public realm we all share. So there's a lot of community good here that improves the quality of life. So I have 3 photos, kind of photos are worth 1,000 words, they say. So I've got three photos that show a transition from the traditional Euclidean code to form-based code design from Hercules, California, near City Hall, about 25 miles northeast of San Francisco. So, so the first one is at the top, and that shows Euclidean design or traditional code where the automobiles dominate near the highway with multi-lane streets and there's a Shell gas station there. You can see the Shell sign. And in the background, you can see the elevated highway structures if you can make those out. And then the commercial zone right around the corner is City Hall. So automobiles, gas stations, big streets. I see some sidewalks, but I don't see any pedestrians using them, which is probably typical of the Euclidean design. Now the photo below that, the second photo, there's been some enhancements. It's the same scene, but there's some enhancements. And I call it shows the first phase of form-based code with mixed-use buildings in the background. Those multi-story building, I think 3-story, up to 3 stories. You can see it towards the background. Maybe 4 stories for some, have been added right onto the sidewalks for both business use and residential use with pleasant street front entrances. So that's the gas station's still there, but rather than the predominance of highway, we see the predominance of mixed-use buildings with easy access to them. Now we'll go to the third photo, which is phase 2 of form-based code. The Shell station is gone. There's a Shell sign indicating the Shell station is off of that main street to a side street. And the Shell station, where the Shell station was, is replaced with more mixed-use buildings in the foreground, encouraging pedestrian shopping near City Hall, which is right around the corner. And of course, we have trees and shrubs added to finish off this form-based code design transition. So there you have a visual presentation of going from traditional code to form-based code. It's pretty striking.
And before you continue, if anybody has any questions or comments as we go along, please feel free to jump in. Delighted to see a couple of members of the select board here. Because I know that getting one presentation may, another will help. This is basically, we had a little bit of intro comments, but we're going through basically the same, and glad to take any questions or comments. So, yeah, Victor.
I I have not read the code in detail yet, I'm sorry to say. But how, in making this transition, what happens to the current use of a property if it gets, it doesn't get substantially changed? Like, is it still grandfathered in? Oh, okay. That's a shame.
I mean, you know, we have gone through some code updates in certain areas. Probably a lot of you were involved with the Main Street committee process. And so there were some changes in the code. And there are, you know, it will be grandfathered in that way. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Let's look at the benefits of form-based code versus traditional code. There's a bunch of them. Form-based code encourages a mix of land uses, creating more walkable neighborhoods that include residential buildings, businesses, green open spaces, sidewalks, and interconnected walking trails, allowing residents to leave their car at home or at least not use it as much when combining their errands. Form-based code revitalizes urban neighborhoods where a developer has more leeway to build a unique residential project in a desirable location based on the number of units, building height, and design. Form-based code helps local businesses thrive by not by not limiting commercial businesses to specific zones, but allowing local business owners to set up shop throughout the municipality, sometimes where the business owner can live in the apartment above their business. Form-based code provides developers with more flexibility as to where they can build, what they can renovate, and more, resulting in more aesthetically diverse buildings that give communities a more unique appeal. Form-based code promotes a mix of housing types and more affordable housing. Goodness gracious, we certainly can use that. It's done by allowing new construction and residential renovations to occur throughout the town center growth area instead of concentrated in specific areas as in traditional code. Form-based code increases resident satisfaction because diversity of spaces creates better housing options for different generations, as well as improved walkability, health, overall quality of life. It also allows for better integration with existing public utilities, including enhanced landscaping, outdoor seating, and public spaces. Form-based code provides economic viability because more areas can serve more than one purpose under this type of zoning, allowing for increased revenue sources for the developer and the community. Form-based code also increases property value and related real estate taxes. Form-based code provides zoning information that's easier to use than traditional code because it's shorter, more concise, and emphasizes illustrations over text. And most important of all, form-based code implements 7 of Topsham's 2019 comprehensive plans, 9 big ideas, which Susan had referred to earlier. I'll just repeat them here, I think it's worthwhile. Streets for people with safe walkability and bicycle riding, local and regional mobility with interconnecting sidewalks and walking trails, access to nature and open spaces via sidewalks and walking trails, foster social connection by encouraging social gathering places, be deliberate about growth by incentivizing new development where there is existing infrastructure, as in our proposed town center, housing diversity for more affordable housing, and I wrote down a more sustainable future with fewer vehicle miles traveled and preservation of land otherwise consumed by sprawl. So the bottom line here is that not using form-based code would mean ignoring most of Topsham's comprehensive plan and not doing most of what our residents want from their local government. So that's how critical it is. Okay, I've got some more photos to kind of show some local examples of form-based code design.
Just a second.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that this is a photograph of Brunswick.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't mean that Brunswick has form-based code. What it means is that Brunswick's downtown was created in a way that now form-based code reflects, because New England town centers were made for walkability and for mixed use, where you had a shop downstairs and apartments upstairs. We've gotten away from that, but form-based code specializes and it focuses on form more than separating all the uses. Residential over here, the commercial over here. Some separation is always important, but bringing some things back together creates a more walkable town center where people have naturally occurring social interactions, which improves mental health. Gary, do you want to?
Can I, just a brief comment? Totally unnecessary comment. I love Keith's presentation, but it's so, it's Keith, isn't it?
Pete.
Pete, yeah, Pete, I'm sorry, Pete. It's so funny to me. We are talking about having cities and towns again. I mean, that humans, whether you like them or not, have been building cities and towns for a very long time because that's how they met, conducted business, lived. They didn't have airplanes and, you know, cars flying around all over the place. And it was, they needed proximity to get anything done. And, but it also built community. It reinforces a sense of community. So it's so funny that Americans are rediscovering the idea of a city, a village, and a town. I love that idea, and it's happened in Topsham. Let us lead the way. Dirigo, is that one of my north? Let us lead the way. So great. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's really, so form-based code isn't all that new. The implementation of it goes back to the 80s, which, you know, isn't all that long ago. But the fact that downtown Brunswick has been using it ever since its original design of the downtown area is a reflection of how form-based code really works. It really, I mean, it really does work for downtown Brunswick, so it can certainly work elsewhere. So this is a photo of downtown Brunswick, exemplifying form-based code design. We've got showing its quaint buildings of different facades, roof lines and similar scales, building entrances that front directly onto Main Street, right up to the wide brick sidewalks, enhanced with trees, streetlights, and outdoor seating. And of course, this is all being updated, and some of this.
The trees are gone now.
Yeah, they cut out all the trees. I hope they are planting new ones.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and the sidewalks now are a combination of poured concrete, kind of bordered by bricks, I guess is the way I would explain it. So it's not all bricks anymore, but I'm glad they decided on using the bricks, because the bricks go back a ways and have historical significance. There's also angled parking on Main Street, and still will be, as far as I'm concerned, after the renovations. This makes parking convenient and slows down traffic for safer pedestrian crosswalks, as do the speed bumps on Main Street. Okay, let's go to the second photo, which this is the green space, or I guess they call it the mall on Brunswick's Main Street, including public benches, a bandstand for concerts and other social events, and the nearby food trucks, which is convenient. And this photo I took during the lighting of the Christmas tree at Christmas time. This certainly fosters a social connection to the community, and one of the comprehensive plan's big ideas. So as you can see, with the form-based code design, downtown Brunswick has a unique character, a joyful sense of place, and is the heart of the community for social gathering. Okay, we'll go to the next photo. Shows another example of form-based code design, which you're in right now. We're familiar. This is our Topsham's municipal complex. I call it a landscape mini campus with the two dominant brick buildings, the municipal offices that we're in right now, and the public safety building a short walk from each other along a landscape brick walkway. And of course, parking here at the municipal complex is along the sides and rear of the building, close to the side entrances, leaving the building frontages facing Main Street with front entrances that are really rarely used, but very attractive. And I think the bricks used in both buildings are reminiscent of those locally used in the 19th century commercial buildings, such as Fort Andros in Brunswick. So I've got three more photos. There we go.
Yeah,
Okay, so Rusty's Market and Gas Station in Topsham on Middlesex Road, Route 24. Let's take a look at it. So this is the photo which shows the sign for Rusty's Market, the market itself, and there's a gazebo in the front. And then the gas pumps are barely visible. They're in the rear, so you can't really see. I think there's a cover there. I don't know, the blue cover to the left is a hint of that there are gas pumps there, but not too visible from the front. So Rusty's is in a residential neighborhood where the market building looks more like the surrounding homes, enhanced by a residential gazebo on the front lawn. And per the residents' insistence, Rusty's closes at 10 p.m. every evening to keep the area quiet and glare-free at night. I wasn't aware of that, but that's all part of making a community a better place to live in. Okay, this is a Rusty's Market and Gas Station, but not the one in Topsham. This is one in Waterville. And this is more like your typical gas station, visible from the highway with a huge sign here on the left. You could definitely make out the gas pumps, and then the market building is there. But this is not what the nearby homeowners in Topsham wanted their gas station to look like. And certainly did not want it to go 24 hours a day. Hence the closing at 10 p.m. So let's take one more photo. So this is an aerial view. There you go. This is an aerial view of Rusty's in Topsham, showing.
I'm having trouble getting this to cooperate. I can only see part of it. I apologize.
Well, it has more of a showing of the gas station being in the rear, but you can see, well, there's two cars entering on the bottom left-hand corner. And there's a blue line which shows how one path cars can take. They can enter to the left and they can exit more to the right on what is this? Oh, here it is. It's the blue line. Yeah. So that's the way I go. Now you can go the other way, but I think this helps minimize the congestion of the traffic in this pleasant residential area. So Rusty's is certainly an example of a form-based code. Yeah, is there? I think we're going to do it.
See what we got. That's it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I had some references. We have a local expert living in Brunswick who we tapped and had a meeting with, which was very helpful to us. And of course, we have been using two consultants. And there's a book that the planning department has written by the local expert, Randall, a second edition book written by him. And I also use that for general background information. And there is a Form-Based Code Institute that published an article that I used to get this information from. Hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight into form-based code.
Any comments or questions, Jeanette?
Certainly it sounds lovely.
And it also sounds traditional. I mean, this is a way that communities and towns and cities have grown up over a long time here in the United States. And it is lovely to live in places like that where people can live above and there's a little shop underneath. There is a lot more sense of community in a place like that. It's great. So I can see the appeal, but I am concerned because, and I appreciate clarification, because you mentioned that the Euclidean-based code was developed in part to protect people from the effects of pollution or horrible smells or terrible lights or noise and all that kind of stuff, bad water, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just not hearing this talked about with the the form-based code. So for example, if you think of a downtown area in a town the size of Topsham, and you think of charming little shops, you know, the hairdresser and the vegetable stand and the barber shop and the, you know, whatever it is, it sounds great. But if instead you say all you have to do to locate here is build a building of this size and shape, and then you think about the bait packing operation moving in, not great. It stinks. Not that it's a bad business. It's not a bad business. It's probably a good business, but maybe not a good business in this kind of area. Or the chicken packing plant, where every night at 10 o'clock at night, they take huge vats of oil and drop them down the public sewer. I'm only saying this because I saw it happen. And with that chicken packing plant comes in, they stink so badly that you have to buy covers for all the manhole covers, because otherwise the odors come up and people all throughout the town smell this awful smell, awful. So you have to pay for that, and it's not really, you shouldn't have to. And then they get so bad that they clog up the sewer. And for a year, people run with 4-inch rubber pipes across their front yards instead of having a working sewer pipe, because they dumped all that grease down, which they shouldn't have done, and they got fined for it eventually. But for a year, nobody has a working, I mean, I'm just saying, where's the protection against, I mean, if you have a meth lab or a illegal marijuana growing operation, there are laws against that. So they would come and close that down. But what you're picturing is so idyllic, but where is the protection against those industrial uses? Where is the protection against somebody just putting something that's fairly noxious in a small area in the middle of a downtown? That's what I don't understand about
Great,
this.
thank you, Jeanette, that's very helpful. Now, I'm gonna let Pete off the hook here because you've done the presentation and I see a hand over here, you willing to go for that? Just make sure you're in a microphone. Yeah.
Sure. So just as the code is now, there's different uses that are allowed in certain areas. That isn't going away.
Oh, okay, so you're maintaining that.
There is still use requirements
Okay.
for the different zones, for the
Okay.
different areas. It's just the driver behind the code, I mean, used to be, uses were primary and the building that housed those uses was, you know, less of a concentration. It's really just a shift in
If you're keeping
what is
the-
first priority.
if you're
But there
keeping
are,
the use,
yes,
if you're keeping the use parts, then you're probably fine. Yeah. Okay.
yes,
Thank you for the clarification.
there are uses, but like I said, it's not as much the driving, and some of the uses are not as separated as they were before, but it's more along the lines of, you know, combining residential and retail.
Yeah.
Let me just mention one thing.
Yeah.
Right now, there is, in some of our zoning, and I'm not fully knowledgeable about this, but this is what I understand, that there are some areas where, in some buildings, even in Middle Village, where there would be a proper mix of residential and not so much commercial, but offices, right? And it can't happen because of the current zoning.
Yes,
That,
I hear you. That's an improvement.
that's it.
Yeah.
Now, and the safety issues are totally handled, totally. Now, you don't have to believe me, but there is a use table. in the code.
Yeah, that's the part I didn't realize.
I
that you're keeping the
suggest-
use table. So
I
that's-
suggest anybody who's not familiar with the code at this point or with form-based code, give yourself a chance to look at that 13-minute PowerPoint presentation narrated by an expert in form-based code who kind of walks you through. There's a one slide with a very simple diagram that says, these are the emphases of traditional code. It's just a shift in emphasis.
Yeah.
That instead of keeping
Yeah.
everything separate,
Yeah,
you're allowed to have it come back
yeah. and
together
I-
where it's appropriate.
I can see an awful lot of advantages of that. On the other hand, I have lived and served in public office in a town where that got out of hand. And what I fear here is that people think, oh, no, that's not gonna happen. Well, if you don't allow for it, it does happen. And then you're stuck with it because you don't have anything in your code to prevent it.
The only
So-
thing I would say, Jeanette, is all of those things are important. That we have several months ahead.
Yeah.
Where, you know, if everybody takes a little time and starts delving in with their particular concerns, we will get the feedback we need to come out with a really great code for Topsham, where the things that people are worried about, that you've seen happen elsewhere, that you don't want to happen here, let's make sure that you bring those. The only thing I would say is, what's most helpful to us is where, if you go into the code and you say, oh, there's something missing here, be very specific about that section of the code. Because nailing that and saying what it is that you think is a problem, that's where it will be helpful to us. Okay, so we have time. One more before we turn to Gary. And Dan, did you have a question?
I think I might hold off
Okay.
until our next meeting, but I do have several questions.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'm probably getting more than my fair share of questions, but Jeanette has a very good point. And and in spite of the code, no matter how well written it is, if we don't have good enforcement of the code, all right, the powers that be in Topsham, things can go through the cracks, just like Jeanette is talking about. And neighbors who have been in this, and I'm going to be an MD, I'm really enjoying my new roles in MD. You begin to understand how that can happen. So, yeah, it's a concern. No matter how good your code is, you also need backbone and enforcement. Thank you.
thank you, that's noted. Any other?
I just have some questions.
Sure,
Are you guys up for questions?
sure.
All right. Okay. So I noticed for the, could you talk about the master plan developments? We haven't heard about that yet, about where they're going, what they'll sort of look like. Is that something you're covering tonight, or are we just doing the village center?
Well, it is in the village center. The
Right.
master plan development zone, the master plan zone is in the village center.
It's in the village center, and then also in
Is
the
anywhere
industrial
that-
and the limited industrial.
Where are you seeing that?
On, there's a note. I'm just gonna say that no page numbers thing. Still no page numbers, but it's 3-3.
Let me just,
Under 3.40 other regulations. And it said all proposed developments on a single parcel or combination parcels that include more than,
6 acres.
yep. Or
It
include
was 4,
more
and it's up to
retail
6.
uses, and it includes them in the industrial. Maybe I read it wrong.
I mean, where there is a parcel of 6 acres or more, it's the size of
So all parcels in town that are more than 6 acres have to be a master plan development now, if they're gonna be commercial space? Is that? And then.
It's not about it being commercial spaces. There is one zone that's the master plan zone, right?
Okay,
That's the Crooker.
okay, just
area.
for
Yeah.
master plan development. Okay, perfect.
Good.
All right, I misunderstood that.
Sorry.
Okay,
No, I may have not understood it, but we renamed, the consultant recommended that we rename that zone, a master plan district zone,
yep,
in order to use that concept on other proposals, that would
Yeah.
fit that scale, that are, 6 acres or more. And it was debated how large or, what the minimum size would be, so,
okay,
yes. Thanks.
okay. And then, under residential, it looks like you've made anything that's in a farm or open space, the state program, you're required to have an open space subdivision now, which wasn't a rule before.
There's been the area sort of outside, so in R2, R3, all of those areas, there's been no zoning change. So all of that did not get an overhaul or a change. It got an update and so there's been no substantive change in that area. There have been a couple of substantive changes, but not there. So the subdivision,
It's redlined as a new
so you're
note,
the subdivision,
4-3.
right? The subdivision, I believe the subdivision piece, which you're looking at the red line for,
All proposed residential subdivisions of 10 or more acres in the R3 zone land enrolled in the state farm and open space tax program must comply with open space development. And before, they had the freedom to be minimum lot size subdivisions or estate lot subdivisions.
now my understanding, and I may be wrong, is that change in the code was actually done at the November town meeting, and then a correction was done at this town meeting.
Okay,
So that is something that moved,
so it's a change, but not a change you made.
I believe that's correct. I mean, that.
No. As
No?
far as I know, it's new. I'm sorry. I mentioned it at our last meeting. That was, that previously, open space subdivisions were allowed almost anywhere. And, but they were just allowed, they weren't required in any particular location. And it does look like that this code, as far as I can tell, changed that to say, if it's already in the farmland program or the open space program, it has to be an open space subdivision. And I think that's a great idea. But,
Gotcha.
Um,
And probably there's some disagreement on that. I don't know. I mean,
I mean, you know,
how are you coming at it, Marilyn?
Well, the other
I
side,
was just wondering the purpose, I was wondering who did that, if that came out of the planning board for like the, they were doing their update, which that doesn't seem like a update to me, that seems like a pretty big change.
Right.
And I've looked through a lot of this, and I feel like part of their update, they've made some pretty big changes that don't seem like cleanup to me. So, which, if we're gonna make big changes, that's great, but let's have public hearings, let's have public input, let's.
Oh, there is gonna be, believe me, on all of this. there will
So
be-
I'm just sort of making sure.
No,
because
that's absolutely.
when they do all these things, when the planning board does all this cleanup stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing it in workshops, which aren't televised, and there's no minutes on the public website. So
Right.
how do you follow that? How does someone who's looking to, keep track of things,
Right,
keep up with that? You
right.
can't.
No, that's a great question.
So that's been pretty frustrating following.
I think Mark might be able to answer this. Am I?
So here's the process going forward, is as you mentioned, Susan, planning board had things that they thought should be addressed in current code townwide.
Right.
CPIC was obviously working on form bit, which is really
Right.
more accurately called hybrid, because it
Right.
really isn't a pure form bit. All that now has been merged into the draft that came out in April.
Right.
CPIC's raising awareness this summer of the meetings like this, trying to get people to
Right.
read it. Planning board's gonna start having formal workshops in September, October, taking comments like these.
Mhm.
And then Conservation Commission asked for some changes to open
Right.
space too, potentially. So all this gets looked at, a third draft gets written close to the final draft, November, December, then planning board has full hearings in January, February, hopefully to get things ready so they go to the select board to put on an agenda for the May town meeting later this spring.
Back from that one. Why'd you delete the develop transfer overlay? Why is that taken out?
That's part of the outside the form-based code area,
Okay, another thing the planning board did.
correct?
Okay,
But where,
another substantial change that got no public comment.
where are you finding that, Marilyn?
That's on 5-16.
Okay. And what is it called, the transfer?
Develop, transfer, overlay. I mean, I just wanna make sure that all these other changes that the planning board is doing are things that are coming from the comprehensive plan. And we've not just opened up the entire town code for just whatever anyone thinks should be changed, you know, oh, hey, I don't like what my neighbor's up to with their, that another big change was home occupation. There's a lot of changes to the home occupation ordinance, which, you know, we're all paying $6,000, $8,000 in taxes. If you wanna make a little money out of your home, you know, let's do that. But changes to the home occupation, not in the comprehensive plan. I mean, we're opening up the whole code here, but let's have a reason for what the things we're changing. Let's not just open it up so we can just willy-nilly change everything while we're putting a whole new version through.
And it sounds like the home occupation, I'm not sure, but it sounds like possibly the development transfer overlay might have to do with.
Development transfer overlay is when you get increased density on your lots and you, you're buying open space somewhere else, right?
So it's about preserving open space,
Yes.
which is consistent with the comprehensive plan, but.
But it got deleted. They deleted the whole section. So I don't know if it's because no one's ever used it or what, but.
Okay, no, thank you, so that's noted.
Yeah.
Rick, did you have a
Okay,
comment?
oh, go ahead.
Yes, so what I was gonna say is one of the things that, you know, our understanding position from the start was that it was the town center that was being revised. And the areas outside of
The growth
the
area.
outgrowth area was essentially realigning the organization, the functionality, the flow, and conflicting provisions of the code.
That's what I
And
understood.
providing, you know, the planning board more, you know, objective ways of reviewing proposals, particularly in the downtown zone, but in the areas outside that, it was
Right.
the same. And that has morphed over time a bit. And I think one of the things we need moving forward is basically inventory of substantive changes or the roadmap crosswalk between the two to see where provisions have fundamentally changed or are classified as substantive or non-substantive.
That was my understanding. My understanding was they were just gonna take out redundancies and just, you know, clerical.
Yeah.
And that's not what I saw in this, so I just
And
wanted to comment on it.
And my understanding is as the planning board's been going through, so they've been finding areas where there was conflicting stuff that in order to resolve it, it was actually conflicting with itself.
Mhm.
So you know, some of those things, like I said, I do think we need to have an inventory of what some of those issues are.
But the need in terms of the update cleanup was way beyond clerical.
Mhm.
Because there were some things where it
Right,
was
I understand.
absolutely not clear
Redundancies, yeah.
and
I get that.
contradictory, yeah. But
I get that.
if you've got other ones, Marilyn, let's
Keep
hear
going.
them, yeah.
Okay, on the use table, 6-3. Okay, this is not matching up with what's changed from the old one.
No.
I realized that you combined, but for example, well, let's just use my favorite one for example here. Let's use vehicle sales. Vehicle sales, okay, so first of all, red dots. What do red dots mean? Does that mean it's added as a permitted use? Or does that mean you're taking away the permitted use? It's very unclear what the red dot means.
Are you looking at the
I'm looking at
red
the
line
use.
version or the clean
I'm
version?
looking at the red line version.
The red line version was probably because that use was changed along the way.
Okay, so
it's
not
part
a
of
change from this.
Correct, it's a red line version of the initial draft of the ReCode plan that went out, and then from feedback and comments,
Yeah.
red line added, so that, that red dot.
So you can't tell what changed from the oral ordinance by reading this.
What I understood is that the old use table was so cumbersome and overly detailed with missing pieces in it
Mhm.
that it needed an overhaul. And so there's a new use table.
Right, but I think you could still show what's coming and what's going here. Or make a list, I don't care. Show people what they could do before that they can't do now, and what they can do now that they couldn't do before, which is something I've asked for before. And it's very unclear by this. So vehicle sales and service rental, vehicle sales and rental used to be conditional in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zones. And now it's only allowable in 2. Doesn't show here, no way to tell. Solar, I don't know if that was a recent code change or not. Solar fields were formerly allowed almost anywhere. R2, R3, all of it, not anymore. Now they're only allowed downtowns in the commercial zones. So I'm not sure,
That sounds like a
That
mistake.
doesn't sound,
That's a
doesn't sound
total
right,
mistake.
yeah.
I mean, I can give you my page to look at. There, it's
But
prohibited in R1, R2. Small scales allowed in R2, but it's prohibited in R1 and R3.
Oh, these are for solar fields that are primary use for the property, not what's it called, accessories. So if you can put a solar field as big as you want, as long as you're the primary user of the power. But you can't do it for sale of people in some of those, those zones. Now that,
So it would be under utilities instead of solar? Is that what you're saying?
no, the solar, yeah,
I'm just trying my page. Alright. Okay, this is probably my biggest concern, and that's the last one. I'll stop taking up your time.
let me just go back for a second, because
Alright.
you mentioned the vehicle sales and rental. It's conditional, in the old code, it was conditional in 7 zones,
Yes,
right? But it wasn't allowed outright in any of them. It was always
it
conditional
was.
in 7. Oh, it was, okay, hold on. Because it sounds like there is
auto
greater,
sales was permitted in the commercial corridor,
okay,
and it was conditional in RCU, MUC, MUC1, CC 196, industrial, limited industrial, village, commercial. That was it.
so now it's only,
Now,
is it conditional or allowed?
well, that depends what the red dots mean, but, vehicle sales and rental is a red dot, which I don't know what that means.
So I think to find out what,
In mixed
you
transitional
need to look at the,
and CC 196, it's a red dot, which it doesn't say what a red dot is down here, I don't know what it
I
is.
think
Look
that
at the
means it's
complete
permitted and
code.
it's added.
Yeah.
I think it's permitted.
The red dot means that it was changed from some other restricted use to being allowed.
Okay, so
it's
it's
basically
permitted in
changing
2,
it. It's changing it to a.
but no conditional on the other 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, they eliminated it from R3.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Solar kind of eliminated.
Oh, but is that small scale, like for your house, or just a solar field? for sale?
All of them are eliminated from R3, all of them.
You can't put solar panels on your house and.
No, that's an accessory use, but you can't put solar panel on.
For sale.
Right.
Just something, oh, I see. So that's just commercial solar.
Well, I know,
So
but
it
that's,
sounds like it's not clear.
it's not, there's no reason to eliminate it from R3 that I could find. that is not something I would have.
There's no reason to eliminate it from R3. Right. Commercial, solar?
Yes. We have projects that are already approved in R3.
So just remember, this is the beginning of months-long input process. And this is so helpful because, I mean, you're looking at the red line. What would be helpful is also to sort of see the draft without the red line. So what is the proposed, you know?
Yeah.
And no doubt, knowing you, you're gonna go back and look at it.
Yeah.
You know, because the draft is now complete.
Yeah.
From beginning to end. And what people are thinking, obviously, the input that we are getting, we hope will be filtered through your commitment to the comprehensive plan vision.
Okay, this is my last one. This is the most important one. I asked for this at the last time I came to one of these meetings and it did not come through as a change. On page 6-19.
Yeah.
Under the manufacturing and industry use group, under high impact industry.
Yeah.
Concrete product manufacturing is listed as a high impact industry.
Yeah.
And in the L1, high impact industry is not allowed. Making concrete product manufacturing not allowed in the L1. And that's someone who works in concrete product manufacturing.
Yeah.
In the LI, I could really use that to change.
Great, so I'm
Second request.
making a note of that.
Thank you.
And obviously, what's already been said, and we can just remember
Yes.
this, is that anything that's already in play is grandfathered in.
That's right, but I don't wanna be grandfather. I don't wanna be grandfather, not allowed use. We want the freedom to expand our business.
Yep.
As we see fit.
Yep.
As a long time, been here since before zoning, resident and business owner in Topsham. We wanna be allowable use.
Great, thank you, yep. Okay, that's it. Yes.
Pretty much covered, I think everything else.
Great, yeah.
So Susan, you very politely noticed that I grabbed the wrong draft, so I appreciate that. But you know what Marilyn just said about being non-conforming, nobody wants to be non-conforming. You know, I'm gonna talk to you about the commercial mixed use and the mixed traditional that you renamed, because that's where I do business. And
Now, hang on, wait a second, so you're
well,
talking
I'm
about,
gonna talk to you first about the commercial mixed use. All
okay,
right, I'm gonna give you an example.
okay,
And I was just looking at my iPhone, I think I have got the right language, but you might correct me, this might have been changed. I mentioned this in one of the very first workshops, and I used the Sherwin-Williams building as an example.
Yeah.
And it sounded to me, as I went down the street to Mattress Firm and Town Fair Tire, that under section, I think it's 2.40.5, surface parking lots. It sounded like my parking was gonna be non-conforming. And it doesn't take much for the planner, when you come back and ask to do something, to get kicked to site plan approval. So I kind of agree with Marilyn. I don't wanna be in a position where I'm coming back to do something and I have to go back to site plan review, and then it doesn't take much to do that. The other thing that I wanna say, just in general, and I apologize because I haven't spent the time since I last saw you on this document, but I'm hoping that the airspace will be encouraged to be used down there. You showed some nice pictures of downtown Brunswick. And, you know, 2 years ago, I did the Tontine and added 16 units with an elevator. I can see the same thing happening at the Goodwill Building, at Sherwin-Williams, and some other buildings along Topsham Fairmont Road. So there's gonna have to be some incentives there to share some parking we got nighttime and daytime parking, but I'll give you a perfect example, the Kumi, it eats up a huge amount of parking. So
The who?
Kumi, the Asian grill.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so as I read down through some of these, it talks about a single side yard parking. And also parking is not allowed on corners. And I think that's section 2. That would make me think that Pub 99 has got parking on both corners is gonna be non-conforming. So anyway, I'd love to have you, as you're going through this process, and I'll be back again when I'm got some real points to bring to your attention, but I'm hoping that the airspace will be encouraged to be used for residential.
So when you're talking about airspace, are you talking about vertical
Yes.
space? Right.
Yeah.
And
I'm talking like you take the Sharon Williams building, 11,000 square feet, you know, in round numbers, that's a dozen units per floor at like 1,000 feet or a little less. And you might go up 2 floors. It's the parking that's gonna dictate how much you can build there. And again, we're all after that. I mean, if you talked to me 15 years ago or 20 years ago, we didn't think so much about pedestrian access. And in fact, our Topsham Fair Mall traffic studies that Tom Erica did, if you look back at those, and I had some other owners contact me and said, hey, you know, look at the traffic numbers, there's 0 pedestrian traffic. But now that we're trying to incorporate some housing on Park Drive.
Yeah.
And that's gonna come around the corner. Market Basket's calling me and say, hey, you know, where are my people gonna live?
Right.
They would like to have their assistant managers walking distance or close proximity. So I can see the airspace being developed. And I just wanna make sure that your document that you've worked so hard on accomplishes that. So.
And that's an important point. I think if you delve into the zones and the building types and what's allowed in terms of, like, if you zero in on your property, right?
Yeah.
And then pick and look at the various building types. Look at what's allowed in, for example, the traditional mixed zone, transitional mixed zone, right? And see what's allowed. And we have always been told that there is more flexibility than immediately meets the eye. But this code has its limitations, and then, you know, you can bring something to the planning board for an exemption. So there are possibilities there, but look to see where it is that you wanna think about that airspace.
Absolutely.
And look at the building types and see what's allowed, and then we can have a more specific conversation.
Again, I think the building types are good and pretty traditional. The trump card's gonna be the parking requirement from what I saw several months ago. And I don't think it's changed, but I need to spend more time.
Well, since you've looked at it, I think, Dan, there have been a few more illustrations added of parking options. So
Okay.
have a peek. Yeah,
I'll take a peek
Yeah.
on the back.
yeah, thank you. We're almost at 6 o'clock. Any comments or questions?
Can I throw one in?
Yeah, throw one in.
I was at the Market Basket last week talking to the engineer named Jim Lamb, who did a lot of the work for it. And he was kind of bragging about the parking lot there and the landscaping, it looks beautiful. One of the things he pointed out is, if you remember back last summer, John Larson talked about if we push all the parking behind the stores, he said it's gonna be hard to get national chains to come in to say Topsham Fair Mall, because they've got certain ways they like to do things, and they find that people just won't walk all the way from the back to the front. Another thing Jim brought up is that he said, you really don't want the parking or the front of Market Basket to be the rear of the store, because then you're gonna get the massive compactor that puts all the cardboard, what you see from the road. You're gonna get the tractor trailers and the loading docks, what you see from the road. So as we go through this, we may want to try to find ways for a little more flexibility, so that as Jim pointed out, how they built that mound at Market Basket that they now landscape. So the purpose of the mound was to try to hide some of the store from the road. So there may be other options, if we allow permits and things to go to the planning board.
Yeah.
That allow things to be a little more customized, so we don't necessarily have to, in every instance, push
Have the parking in the rear.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Great. There are always options. Okay. Should we hear from the planners? Do we have some interns with us?
I'll introduce our new planner.
Please.
This is Josh Franklin. Josh has been with us 2 weeks, so. We won't make Josh address anything at this point, but Josh is a licensed landscape architect and came to us from Sebago Technics. So we're happy to have him.
Fantastic, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Have a great team now. Yeah. That's one of the interesting things about this, about being on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. We have gotten to work with a phenomenal number as well as quality of planning professionals, and our current team is terrific. Yeah. So we've had some great helpful comments in terms of, don't forget a number of things. Important enforcement is important. Citizen protections are important. And the substantive changes in the area beyond that the planning board has focused on that turn out to be substantive need to be discussed. Yeah. So let me just poll people here, because we're looking at having some sort of individual opportunities to come in and have conversations, sort of one-on-one. Not everybody's comfortable standing up in front of a group. We're thinking about early in the morning, 8 to 10. Literally, we'll make you a cup of coffee, come in, talk about the plan, delve into it a little bit more if you'd like. We're also thinking about lunchtime. A lot of working people might be able to take a half hour or 45 minutes, 12 to 2 might be another opportunity. Or on Thursdays, the town hall is open late, so maybe 4 to 6. So for some folks, that would be after work. Do you have any input, any suggestions for us in terms of when we're doing our best to create opportunities that work for people who have very busy lives?
Susan, maybe you can ask for show of hands. How many people think mornings would be best, knowing people that you know, right?
Yeah, so I see about 5 people. Morning's good.
How about afternoon, lunchtime?
Lunchtime.
Brown bag lunch with the CBIC and.
Yep. All right, 0. Okay.
And evening, 4 to 6.
Okay,
So we
great.
got our time.
So morning, yeah, so we're consistent. Okay.
Weekend versus weekday.
Yeah, so what about weekends?
Not in the summer.
I'm hoping the answer is no.
I saw one, yes.
One yes, on the week- in the weekend.
Depends on-
And not in the summer.
Okay. So any parting comments? This, it's the beginning of a process. We've gotten some great input here. Thank you. Anybody on the committee want?
I guess one question I have is, was this helpful for those of you who attend? Because we'll be having more sessions, and if it wasn't, we better revise what we expect to do. So,
And I'll expand on it, saying, the purpose of this now is to get feedback, more comments, questions for more questions, and we've had our say. It's really, this is the engagement in the piece that we're looking for.
think, for the general public, I want to emphasize that they really should review the video and get familiarized with the code before the meeting, because otherwise it'll be stairs.
Yeah.
So,
And so look for the little piece in the crier, July issue. The end of that piece, thanks to a member of the committee, ends exactly that way. That that there are some steps that you might want to follow to get acquainted with the new code. Start off with the video, 13 minutes, watch it. If you're like me, you need to watch it again. So, you know, and then there's the plan. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Well, referring back to the comp plan will help you to see that. One of the things that I found very helpful, and I don't know if the rest of the committee felt the same way, is early on, there was something called the project direction memo. And there was a presentation by the consultants in October 2021. That memo, it was about 40 pages, which sounds like a lot, but there are a lot of illustrations in it. And it has some very plain language. So as a way to sort of work your way into the full-blown code, which, I mean, some of you I know are very familiar with the code, but some folks who are not, if you want to sort of take it step by step, look at the project direction memo. I'm sure that's on the website. And it's very plain language. It sort of points the way to what we have now in front of us. So good luck. And if you want to inch forward and then come and talk with us, please do. Our meetings are always open. We're not going to meet in August, but we meet the second Monday of every month, 4:30 to 6. We also have the third Tuesday of the month, basically 4 to 5. We have a workshop. It's not recorded, but it's open. Anybody can come. It's an opportunity for us, without being recorded, to work through things that we need to work through. But you're welcome to be part of that. And we have welcomed people, you know, who want to, and we often will post, you know, if there's a specific topic, but sometimes it's just preparing for our next meeting. But all of those are open. And then there will be, there'll be workshops, there'll be public hearings, there'll be, you know, there'll be open houses. There'll be on the full code with the consultants. And that will be after we've gathered all of this. To help us gather, put some stuff out. Okay, we good?
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you so much for coming out on a hot day.